Well, shalom everybody, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. We're up to page 68 of volume 1 of Rabbi Avigdor Miller's new translation and commentary of Duties of the Mind. And we are looking at part 7 entitled Negative Mitzvot of the Mind. Negative Mitzvot of the Mind. And this is a truly interesting subject. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you're going to get a lot out of this video. It starts off with a note. Up to this point, the author has listed examples of positive obligations of the mind that are accomplished only by thinking. Now he lists the negative obligations. Okay, so there are certain things that we can't accomplish through action, but through thinking alone. There are positive things and there are negative things. And now, as we've just read, we're going to be looking at the negative. Examples of prohibitions, that is negative mitzvot, that are among the obligations of the mind are the opposite of all these which I mentioned above. For instance, to fear Hashem is a positive mitzvah of the mind. When a person neglects his obligation to fear Hashem, he may get into a mood of foolish merriment, kilut rosh. By so doing, he has transgressed the commandment of fearing Hashem cited above, and he has disobeyed the verse, Hashem your Elohim shall you fear. He has removed the fear of Hashem from his mind. So outwardly, he hasn't committed an avera, he hasn't committed a sin, but in his mind, he's cleared the playing field of all the apparatus that assist him, all the resources that assist him to maintain himself despite whatever may come his way to keep his code of conduct. So what he's done is, in his mind, he has willfully gone out of his way to remove that playing field of all that assistance. And so they've all fallen away. So what he has in front of him is what he perceives as a free playing field to do in it whatever he wishes to do, despite the fact he hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't even thought anything wrong yet. But what he has done, he's gone in and he has established a prerequisite environment, like that is he's created an environment in which he can have now the potential to commit an avera. So he's preparing himself for lunacy. He's preparing himself for destruction. Now, he doesn't think that. He's thinking that he's preparing himself for a bit of fun. He's preparing himself to perhaps let his hair down and to relax, just relax a little bit. You know, why so serious all the time? And this is really the thing that nearly all of us do, is that we will remove this. I really have difficulty putting it in any other words. We establish a prerequisite. So we establish an environment that removes any potential we have of enabling us to do something wrong. So if I look at it, for example, if I look at it in the physical realm, if you're an Orthodox Jew and you have quite obviously an Orthodox beard that's not trimmed, even without your religious garb, even without your peyot, even without your kippah, people see, oh, that's a religious beard. If you remove your tzitzit, if you're wearing the tzitzit, people could see quite obviously that's a religious person. And so if that religious person is walking down a red light district with tzitzit hanging out of his shirt and a religious beard and a kippah on his head, people are going to say, hey, what's a religious guy doing in this red light district? So what a person does, physically, they shave off the beard, they remove the peyots, they remove the kippah, they remove the tzitzit, and they walk down the red light district. Now, they haven't committed an avera yet. They haven't looked at anything. They haven't caused themselves to look at anything immodest yet. But they've suited themselves up, ready, and in the actual attire of a transgressor. And so this is what a person does mentally. He clears his mind of all these religious parameters, ready to go and sate his desire, sate his needs, sate his base instincts. So I hope that gives you a bit more of an understanding of what we do. In our minds, we clear the field. And so we remove the fear of Hashem from our minds. And so therefore, we are more susceptible to do something that's wrong because we don't have the name of Hashem before us at all times, as David Melech would say. Or consider the mitzvah of contemplating the wonders of Hashem's creations, which are cited above. If a man sees things around him and not interest himself in to notice how remarkable they are and how benevolent they are as Hashem's gifts to mankind, he desecrates the mitzvah that is. He is mevatel it. He is mevatel it. I don't know what that is. Mevatel. If you know, let me know in the comments. So the idea is like he picks up an orange and he starts to peel back an orange and he eats an orange and he looks at the orange. He goes, "Oh, this orange tastes really nice," and that's the extent of his thoughts. Doesn't go any deeper by thinking, "Wow, Hashem creates an orange." Causes it to go like a high visibility color, like an orange, bright orange color on the tree, to designate it to the person or the animal to know that it's ripe to eat, and that it has its own seal. It has its own vacuum seal, and even inside the seal there are further seals, and those seals cause sections of it to be broken away, pulled off, and eaten, and the other seals remain sealed in their thin layer of skin even after you break off a piece. So it's almost like opening a packet of biscuits with partitions of holding each biscuit. An orange has the same concept, and yet that grows from a tree, which comes forth by way of a seed that knows to grow into a tree, eventually if planted in the ground with moisture and photosynthesis and all that sort of cool stuff, and knows to actually produce after its own kind. And then a person thinks about that and their mind's blown. But this person isn't thinking like that. They just go, they want to eat an orange because they're hungry and they like the taste of the sweetness of the orange. That's the extent of it. So they're removing the thought from their mind. They're removing the thought of Hashem from their mind. Here the author is introducing a new concept, kiddush, which was not explicitly stated before. There is no objective measure by which a person can definitively count himself as having crossed the line of being mevatel mitzvot of the mind. So there's that word again, mevatel mitzvot of the mind. He may have been preoccupied with another worthy thought, which relieves him of the obligation to think of the wonders of Hashem or any other of the mitzvot of the mind that at that moment. So yes, there might be the same person that's eating that orange, but maybe they've heard that their son or daughter have been summoned to court over some sort of act of violence. And so that person, their mind is actually been dogged with thoughts and different scenarios are popping up in their mind, and they're wrestling with the worry of their daughter or their son going to court. And so therefore they don't think about the orange to that degree, and they don't think about all these things that Hashem is giving them from moment to moment, because their mind is occupied by a genuine worry that's come up in their life, or something else that's actually worthy of deep thought is coming into their mind. So there could be other reasons as well that are valid. Here the author is introducing a new concept, kiddush, which was explicitly stated before. There is no objective measure by which a person can definitely count himself as having crossed the line before mevatel mitzvot of the mind. He may have been preoccupied with another worthy thought, which relieves him of the obligation to think of the wonders of Hashem or any other mitzvot of the mind at that moment. This is similar to the concept of prohibition of bitul Talmud Torah, neglecting to learn the Torah. So somebody may have come to a point where they neglected to learn the Torah at their designated time on their schedule because they've got a worry. Maybe they have a grandparent or a mother or a father they're very close to that is near death and in hospital, and they're going along and seeing them day to day, and any moment the hospital could call and tell them the worst news that they could possibly imagine. So that causes them to have their minds be affected and not be able to actually think about the Torah on the level that they previously had been. And that's a valid situation that arises. A person is exempt from the obligation to learn Torah during the time which he needs to devote to his panasa, that is to his earning a livelihood. However, there is no objective measure that will tell him how much of his time he may spend on his Parnassah. This is why the Mishnah says, these are the precepts of no prescribed measure. And we read that every day in the morning prayers, because the Torah itself, the written Torah, doesn't go into the measure of what constitutes the observance of certain things, like refraining from work, what type of work, and so therefore it's down to the teachings that come from the oral Torah to give us lines of demarcation of what's permissible and what isn't permissible. And people that reject the oral Torah, well, what inevitably happens is they've got to make up their own interpretation. So you've got the oral Torah, which was passed down from the time of Moshe and held in the capable hands of great wise men throughout the generations. Or the other option is you can come up with your own interpretation, and who are you? It stands to reason that you'd go, okay, well, what did the sages say? What's the oral Torah say? Why would I trust that I've got the right idea? I'm a no one. I'm not anyone. But people do. They go, oh, no, I know better. Okay. A person is obligated to learn Torah whenever he has the opportunity to do so and is not otherwise engaged in a worthy activity. Sometimes there'll be something that come up. Maybe you've got to prepare your house for, there's an impending bushfire. And so you have to have your house bushfire ready. You're setting up sprinklers over the house or whatever. And for the last couple of days, it's touch and go. If the winds change, the fires could come your way and you could lose your entire home. A person who neglects to learn the Torah when he has the opportunity to do so desecrates the mitzvot of learning Torah. The same is true of the mitzvot of the mind. Also, among the negative mitzvot of the mind is that we may not lust after other people's things. We should not think about how we can get a hold of another person's possessions. To have such a thought or scheme, even though we don't do anything about it, is also forbidden. You come across somebody who's, somebody who loves the Torah like you do and is learning and trying to get on board as well as he can as like you in the Torah, and he has a very attractive wife. And you go, wow, his wife is really attractive. And so you have to be careful that you don't allow your thoughts to trail off and go any further into that acknowledgement. Okay, you can perfectly well acknowledge whether somebody, is easy on the eye or not, but it shouldn't go beyond that. Maybe if the person, has a very good job, and they're getting to go to Israel sort of 3 times a year, whereas, you are only able to sort of looks like you're probably only able to go to Israel maybe once in a lifetime. And you go, this guy's going to Israel 3 times a year, that guy, I wish I had, the money that guy had or something like that. And you allow the thoughts to go sort of past the point of propriety. So you just start, and then it starts to become, you start to have an issue with this guy. It's like, he keeps posting up these photos of him going, of him going to Israel. There's times like, whatever. And you start to have sort of a negative attitude towards the guy. That guy's carrying his own sins and his own shortcomings, and another person that may look like they've got their life together, you might be shocked to find that they're actually, maybe a lot worse off than you. People don't generally show the world, all the sort of inner workings that are going on in their life. They usually show the positive things. Social media, you see it all the time. We may not seek revenge, nor may we bear a grudge against the members of our people, even when we don't actually take revenge or act in a grudging manner. We are in violation of this prohibition if we allow our mind to dwell on the desire to have revenge. So somebody's wife left them or something, or maybe your wife left you, or you got separated and you got divorced, and your wife or your husband took your kids to another state, and it's going to be harder for you to see your kids as regularly as you could when they were living nearby. And so maybe you feel anger over that. Maybe you feel you want some retribution over that. Maybe you feel that that's not fair. And then when you start thinking like that, you start to call into question your faith in Hashem's sovereignty, because what you're doing is you're simply, whenever you say something isn't fair, or in your mind you're going, surely that's not fair, you're doing a direct or indirect attack on Hashem's sovereignty and how He is managing and running the world, because you're saying, well, here Hashem has obviously mismanaged something because this is not fair. And so, whenever you're kind of in your mind thinking that something might not be fair, you're essentially saying that Hashem is too short. Hashem's arm is too short for this thing, and he's dropped the ball. And that's an attack on Hashem. And you're meant to be a lover of Hashem. You're meant to be somebody who serves Hashem. And now you're questioning how he's running the world because in your mind you're thinking, surely this isn't fair. And you spend a few minutes and start to backtrack and think about all your interactions that led to this point. You'll find that it's by your own sins and by your own shortcomings, it led to this. It's not Hashem, it's you. Invariably, it's you. It's not enough to avoid taking revenge and thinking about revenge. A person must not allow his mind to dwell on the wrongful things that another person did to him. That's a huge challenge for me, I must admit. Sometimes I really struggle with that. And then what I do is I think of all the things I've done, and that usually wrestles me off that thought pattern, that getting on that thought and expanding on it, and that usually pushes me off pretty quickly when I start to think about all the things I've done. Yet, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, pushes you to see, oh, look what he's done, look what he did to you, look what she did to you, and then you go, yeah, and then you go, hang on. The Yetzer Hara never tells you, by the way, Hashem's been really good to you despite all the things you've managed to do over your life to just ruin things. He's still been very merciful to you. He works in the opposite direction. Whenever a husband or wife remembers that what one said against the other years ago and actually brings it up, they violate the prohibition against bearing a grudge. So ladies, and I say ladies because this is something that is often attributed to the wives, that their husband says or does something and years later they remember it. You're not permitted to do that. You're permitted to drop it. Now, obviously, if it's a huge affair, if maybe they cheated on you or something like that, more power to you if you make the decision to stay. If the man wants to stay and wants to do tshuva and wants to make amends, and something like that is hard to forget. But there are many other things. Perhaps him not putting the bins out or not cleaning the house or not doing the washing or whatever. Maybe he works hard at his job and when he comes home he's just tired. These things you might want to think about letting go of and not sort of allowing to sort of settle in your mind and add to other things that you're upset about the person. Because you just become too good at doing that. And then you get out of that relationship and meet somebody else and the same thing starts to happen after a couple of years. So, it doesn't matter who the person's face is. You're still going to be putting the same record on that same 45 and hitting play, and it's still going to say the same song because you're not choosing to change. Don't bother ending this relationship and looking for somebody else because it's just going to manifest again in that other relationship. Even if he or she doesn't bring it up, but harbors the hurtful memory, that person is violating lo tisa, which may literally be translated as you shall not guard it in your heart. And among the negative mitzvot of the mind are that we may not think about doing sins, we may not have any desire for them without actually committing the averot in question. People might be tempted to either consider doing them or to dwell on them by picturing them in their minds. Such people violate a negative commandment. Love, L-A-V. Nor may we decide to do them, even when a person does not carry out his decision to sin. He has already sinned by making a choice in his mind. Bekira Belev. A person who decides to commit a wrongful act has violated a love. Even if his plans are foiled. So, even if you make a decision to actually buckle and break into the things that you've been actually meditating on that are wrong for all these years, and somehow something foils your plans and you can't do the thing, had that thing not come up, that obstacle not occurred, you would have carried out the sin in its entirety. It's still attributed to you as you've physically committed that act. Because had not that, whatever it was intervened, caused you to stop in your tracks, you still would have gone out and done it. And, that has a positive too, because if you want to do something good and something stops you, like Rav Shaul was instructed by Yaakov HaZadok, James the Just, to help several men off the end of a Nazirite vow and pay for their offerings that they had to bring. They get their heads shaved, and a riot broke out. And Shaul was thwarted in actually obeying James's instruction because of the riot that broke out. Nonetheless, it was attributed to him as he had the actual Nazirites coming off the end of their vow, and Shaul in assisting them, doing a mitzvah and assisting them, it was considered as if that had all been actually carried out. Because, despite the fact that the riot broke up the potential of doing what was instructed by James, by Yaakov, it still is considered a mitzvah. So it's not all bad. The door swings both ways. Among the negative mitzvot of the mind are similar things that aren't in a man's secret conscience. Things that are in a man's secret conscience. I'll read the whole thing again. Among the negative mitzvot of the mind are similar things that are in a man's secret conscience, which no one sees except the Creator, as it is written, according to Vayikra 19:18. I, Hashem, search out a man's heart, and I test his innermost thoughts, literally his kidneys. The heart and the kidneys serve as a metaphor to represent desires, the heart and the schemes of the kidneys. The message of the prophet Jeremiah here is that we are responsible to Hashem for the way we think. As the author teaches us, the mitzvot of the mind are a very important part of existence and of our service to Hashem. Thoughts can also be a very important part of a person's downfall, representing his major mistakes in life. It's very interesting, isn't it? It's very true. We're getting a lot of truth here in what we're reading. When a person makes plans to commit a sinful act, but he's prevented from carrying out his designs because of the fear of the law or public opinion, he stands innocent of the actual deed. However, he should know that he is held accountable for the thoughts in his mind. Unfortunately, most people don't think about that. And the truth is, we are quite satisfied if our tentative sins remain only in the realm of thought, but Hashem is not satisfied. And that's true. A lot of us have often thought about engaging in some sort of really horrific act. Like, you think of something really, really wrong. And so you'll never do it in a million years, but you play it through your mind. If you had the opportunity to do it, what would it be like? And you think, well, I'm not doing it, and I'm never going to do it. Let's face it, I'm never going to do it. Even if I wanted to do it, there's no way I could do it. Hashem is still not satisfied with that. Hashem is still not satisfied that, because He wants you to be able to govern your mind in the way of obedience to Him. So, this type of learning is so crucial, and I don't know why I seem to be the only one with a few other guys doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a sad day that somebody like me is actually teaching this stuff. Because I'm really a nobody. I'm no one. I'm not a great scholar or anything. I'm not, a Jew or anything. I'm just this little guy that, has found this clean spot, and I've got to keep cleaning now. And people are, what are you talking about? What's all this? What's your weird videos? What's your videos are weird? I don't understand. Like, they're not weird, man. Like, this is stuff we need to learn, but you don't get taught this. Certainly in the Messianic world, you don't get. They're not learning this. They're just, have you ever thought about, bring your mind into obedience to the Messiah? Yeah, no. It's just, they don't teach on it blow by blow. They just maybe throw a few buzzwords and then move on and tell you, the next bus stop that the Messiah went to. Like, what's it going to do? What's it doing for you? Nothing. You just, where's Wally? Where's Waldo? It is written in Mishlei 20:27, the lamp of Hashem is a man's soul. It searches all the chambers of his innermost parts. I remember once talking to a Talmud, a Chacham, a Torah scholar, and he made an observation that I have never forgotten. He remarked that to indulge in idle thoughts is a fault. People can spend large amounts of time, even hours, without thinking about anything significant at all. This often happens when people are walking, riding, or waiting. They simply let their minds wander and daydream, and they don't realize that they are at fault in this. The mind should always be utilized to think about something worthwhile. It is a very big mistake to waste the quiet opportunities that life gives us and not use them to think meaningful thoughts, just as Betul Talmud Torah is a violation of the positive mitzvah to learn Torah at every opportunity. It is Betul Makshavot, a violation of the positive mitzvot of the mind, like the 15 mitzvot listed above. It is shocking to realize what can be achieved with our minds in terms of fulfilling mitzvot and not utilizing the opportunity to do so. When people study and understand the mitzvot of the mind, their lives become full. When people study and learn When people study and understand the mitzvot of the mind, their lives become full. It's very true. There are so many occasions when people must pass time waiting in a doctor's waiting room, online in a post office, etc. These are all the occasions when time is being wasted. So the next time you're in a doctor's surgery in a waiting room and you're flicking through TikTok or Instagram, this is your moment to shine and you're blowing it. Get a pocket size. Get yourself a pocket size Torah book. Look, pocket size, fits in your pocket. Can fit in your front pocket. This is Ramban, a letter for the ages. Igret Ramban. This is the 3-page letter he wrote to his son. And there's a whole commentary and it makes up a book. It's a small book. It's a pocket size book. Look, you can even get Duties of the Heart. Look, pocket size. Put them in your car. Take them with you when you go for a walk. And so when you're in the waiting room, in the doctor's, in the post office or in the doctor's surgery, or you're waiting in line in a supermarket, put the phone away. Unless you've got an app on your phone, maybe you've got a Tanya app or something, you can learn some Tanya. These are the times, all these occasions come up for all of us. Not all of us are famous and we can get people to do these mundane things for us. In fact, very few of us are famous, thankfully. And so these are the moments where your minor sins, what we perceive as minor sins in Averot, they all surround us and accuse us in our judgment. When somebody commits a kind of a big sin, what we consider a big sin, whatever that is, normally that will bear down on us and we'll do something about it. But if it's just thinking about something we shouldn't, we're like, oh, and we just, oh, no one saw that. And so it's never addressed. We never asked Hashem forgive us for what we've been thinking. Or at least on the same level as if we actually say something wrong or do something wrong, we don't seem to be as desirous of Hashem to forgive wrong thoughts as we ask Hashem to forgive our wrong words and actions. It should be the same. There are many occasions when people must pass time waiting in a doctor's waiting room, in line in a post office, etc. These are all occasions when time is being wasted. If people utilize the time with the kavot halavavot, they can accomplish a whole mountain of achievements by exercising their thoughts in their mind. But one must know what to think about. Normally, we're in a line and there's maybe a pretty lady in front of us, and so one thought builds on another, and you just kill yourself. You're just destroying yourself. But what happens if I do see a very attractive woman? Okay, well, in your mind, make an acknowledgement. Look, an attractive woman, Baruch Hashem. Hashem is great. Give the glory to Hashem for the woman who seems very attractive. But if she's immodestly dressed, now that's a totally different story. You can sit down and maybe pray for her. Maybe pray that she wakes up to herself and she gives herself back arms and legs. Wasted moments. Okay, wasted moments. How many wasted moments do you think you have accrued in your life? I reckon I've accrued quite a bit. And these are lost moments. Let's say you're sitting on a plane. Of course, if you have a sefer, that's an opportunity to learn Torah. But suppose you don't, or perhaps you're sitting on a bus or standing in a subway where learning Torah may be difficult. These are all opportunities to fulfill your chivot halevavot, duties of the heart, with that most valuable resource, unused time. For instance, there is a mitzvah of loving Hashem's people just as Hashem loves him. The mitzvah doesn't only mean to love an individual fellow Jew, but to love the entire Jewish nation, Am Yisrael. You can begin to think of the superior qualities, the malot of Am Yisrael, and how Hashem chose this people from among all the nations. You can think of how the Jewish people are loyal to the Torah, that even young boys and girls are continually involved in keeping mitzvot and avoiding forbidden foods. You can recall how Jews are careful not to injure each other and how mindful they are to avoid speaking lashon hara, speaking gossip. You might also remember that many Jews dutifully observed all kinds of kumrat, stringencies. All this can pass through your mind while you're standing in line or riding on a subway. These thoughts evoke in you feelings of love for this wonderful devoted nation, just as Hashem loves his people, Israel. In having these thoughts, you are clearly fulfilling the mitzvah of the Torah, the mitzvah of the mind, which are also referred to as the mitzvah of the heart. Alternatively, you may be thinking of blessing some of the people that you see. Perhaps you wish them well while you are standing there. You wish this observant Jew well, and that observant Jew well. You think you would like to see their success, happiness, and good health. And so Hashem says, you are blessing my people in you're blessing my people in your heart, so I'll bless you. So if you see a Jew, an Orthodox Jew, in the street, you think positive thoughts towards that man, and that he's chosen a lifestyle to be set apart and to be part of the nation of Israel, and it is a noble thing to do. It's an amazing thing to do. In this way, each person has the opportunity to bring about the fulfillment of Hashem's wish, which is to bless his people. We see that today in this week's Torah portion with Bilam going out to curse the nation of Israel, but inadvertently having to bless them with these hugely beautiful blessings each time to different parts of the nation that are in the wilderness. Anyway, I think we'll leave it there. That takes us nicely to part 8, earlier commentaries on the mitzvot. I hope you enjoyed that. I found that a really interesting part of the introduction because it just really brings up a lot of things that we don't tend to think about in terms of the circumstances we find ourselves in those little moments that are potentially wasted moments. And are we attiring ourselves with the right resources and putting ourselves in a situation to be ready to learn if we're in moments of so-called downtime. And the whole concept of clearing the playing field and things like that. Yeah, just interesting things to share the video. Please like the video, subscribe if you haven't already, click the bell so you get all the notifications, and please share this video and get it outfield that people need to learn how to go about showing obedience to Hashem with the mind, because that's where it all starts. Thank you so much for joining me. Until next time, bye for now.